Histories. If you grew up in the UK, there's a 99% likelihood you watched Horrible Histories in your childhood. It was on a free channel called CBBC, so as long as you had a TV, you probably had access to this show. This is one of CBBC's most successful shows, followed by the likes of Sarah Jane Adventures, Tracy B, and so many other classic shows. This show was so good, it became the first children's show to win in the category of Best Sketch Show at the British Comedy Awards, an award normally won by shows aimed at an older demographic. It also won 20 other awards and was nominated for dozens of others between the years 2009 to 2014. So the show was a big deal at the time. So it's not shocking that I would want to talk about such an iconic British show. Now that you have some understanding of the scales of Horrible Histories, let's dive into the history of Horrible History. The show is inspired by a series of books written by Terry Deary, originally published in the UK by Scholastic. The book started when Terry was asked to make a history joke book with a few fun facts. Then that spiraled into Horrible Histories. This was not Terry's first children's book. He wrote other series such as the Classified series, Master Crooks, Crime Academy, Pirate Tales, and Time Detective. Altogether, this man has written over 350 books, and he is still writing books to this day, and has a book coming out in 2025 called Actually, I'm a Murderer. This man has been writing longer than I've been alive. The Horrible History books were books about various eras of history written to show interesting facts of the time so kids could learn about ancient cultures with a comedic twist. The book series started in 1993 with the Eras, Terrible Tudors, and the Awful Egyptians. The books are still available online and in most libraries and are still very popular to this day. Terry has made his opinions on education known. Terry suggested he wanted his book to be used as an alternative form of education for kids for some of the things that they would not have learned in school. From an interview with the Buck Free Press, he said, "If I had it my way, I wouldn't have schools at all. They don't educate. They just keep kids off the street. But my books educate because they prepare kids for life." Terry has also turned two of his Horrible History books into plays based on the Terrible Tudors. Anyway, with the huge success of the book series, it's not shocking that this book series has been adapted so many times.
Horrible Histories. Wow! Horrible History.
Starting off with Horrible Histories, the animated series, which is one of the lesser known pieces of media based off of the Horrible History book series. In the year 2000, the animated series Horrible History animated series started. Made by ITV Network for their kids channel CITV, this series starred two main characters called Stitch and Mo. This show is basically the narrator of the show, kidnapping the kids and dropping them off in various time periods to teach the kids about history through first-hand experience. The first episode is Vicious Vikings. Stitch and Mo run into their school rival Darren, who tells them that he's covering the same topic as them by tricking their teacher into giving it to him so that he can get a better grade and prove he's better than them. So Stitch and Mo lose all hope. Then the narrator teleports them to ancient Greenland. They get info dumped on from it by the narrator.
Eric the Red was convicted of murder and sent into exile. That's when he sailed off with his family and friends and discovered Greenland.
Then they meet Eric the Red, a famous Viking adventurer, who then tried to kill them by beheading them. The narrator does nothing to try and help them, by the way, after getting them in this situation, but we also learn about Odin, so it's all okay.
Odin sits outside his splendorous Valhalla paradise from which he can see anywhere in the world.
In the episode Savage Stone Age, Darren insults Mo and Stitch after they're eating pizza by calling them Neanderthals, but these two do not know what that word means, so the narrator sends them back in time to the Stone Age to learn what is. We also get a quick evolution lesson.
These apes developed the habit of walking upright on their hind legs, which set them apart from every other mammal.
Which was appreciated, I guess. There are episodes of time eras that are not covered by other Horrible History media, such as Amazing Aussies, where we are taught about how Britain sent a bunch of prisoners to Australia. It covers more outside of Western history than the other Horrible Histories, where it talks about Chinese history in the episode Challenging China, and there's an episode about the North Pole. While yes, the other Horrible Histories does have the Incas and the Aztecs, that's very few, this one covers other histories in more detail. This show also has some inaccuracies, like in the episode Amazing Aussies, where it implies sheep are native to Australia, but they were actually brought over by Europeans. This show reminds me of something that would appear on Adult Swim. It also has a DVD. This show only had one season, 26 episodes, and ended in 2001. After the animated series ended, next up was the most well-known version of Horrible Histories.
Welcome to Horrible Histories.
That came out in 2009. Whilst being a show based on the book series, unlike the animated predecessor, where the episodes were about a singular time period and followed two main characters' experience in history, Horrible Histories is a live-action sketch show which shows sketches of key events or how people of the time dealt with problems throughout history. The sketches' eras were named after the books of the Horrible History series: Savage Stone Age, Cutthroat Celts, Awful Egyptians, Groovy Greeks, Rotten Romans, Smashing Saxons, Vicious Vikings, Measly Middle Ages, Terrible Tudors, Slimy Stuarts, Gorgeous Georgians, Vile Victorians, Frightful beautiful First World War, woeful Second World War. In a later series, they brought in the incredible Incas, angry Aztecs, and finally, the troublesome 20th century, plus a few others. Each era was introduced by a little animated character from the times.
And what you're about to see are all genuine Viking beauty treatments.
The main cast of the show included Matthew Banton, Simon Farnaby, Martha Howe Douglas, Jim Howick, Lawrence Rickard, Ben Wilbond, Sarah Hadland, but she left the main cast after season 2 and only showed up for some times. The other 6 played all the major roles in the sketches, meaning they played multiple historical figures and sometimes original characters such as Charles II, Shouty Man, Bob Hale, Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and Death. There were other supporting casts. Those 6 were in every episode of the first 5 seasons. Now I want to talk about some of my favourite songs and sketches from the show. Horrible Histories has made a lot of iconic songs, one of my favourites being the song about King Charles II. It is a parody of My Name Is by Eminem about King Charles II. The song talks about his heritage, it spoke about his father being kicked off the throne and how there was no royalty in Britain for a while. Then we see how Charles got back on the throne, and it's all just very iconic. The song title is The King of Bling, and he is quoted to have brought back partying. As most people know, Britain has had a lot of kings and queens. The Horrible History made a song featuring all the kings and queens from William the Conqueror all the way up to Queen Elizabeth II, who was the monarch at the time the song was released. This song was creatively called the Monarch Song. This song also includes several royals like Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, Victoria, and many others, adding in commentary about different royals. Also, this song does not include all the monarchs. There are several before William I, but they were not mentioned, as William I is credited the first English king, and the others were kings of smaller regions of the UK.
That's all the English kings and queens since William I.
In 2023, they added King Charles to the song to make it accurate. There are many other iconic songs, like The Wives of Henry VIII, where most people learn the lives and fates of his poor wives, but songs are not the only thing this show is known for. As I mentioned earlier, Horrible History does parodies of songs. They also do parodies of TV shows. One of them I remember very well were the wife swap sketches, which was wives from the same era in time, with very different religious, cultural, or class differences, and swapping the wives. One of the most iconic recurring sketches on the show was the sketch Stupid Deaths.
Stupid deaths, they're funny cause they're true.
Where historical figures recount the events that led up to their embarrassing, painful, and ultimately stupid deaths. They tell their stories to Death, who had an iconic intro song. You'd also just laugh in their faces whilst they told these tragic stories about their death. My favourite stupid death is the Greek boxer, which is about this guy who hated the famous Greek boxer Theagenes or Phasos. That after that famous boxer died, this man went down to his statue that was erected in his honour and hit it with a stick night after night due to his hatred of the man. Then one night he hit it one too many times and was crushed to death by the statue after it fell, giving Theagenes one more victory. In later series, they started covering more recent histories such as the Civil Rights Movement, Rosa Parks, the space race, along with other 20th century events as I mentioned before. This show also included a lot of parodies, as you can see by the fact that I already covered the wife swap sketch. They also covered other shows like MasterChef, Come Dine With Me, and many others. This is the original version of Horrible History live action sketch show from 2009 to 2014 with all the original cast. But that is not the end of Horrible History, as there is more time after 2014.
Woo! Stupid deaths. Hope next time it's not you.
Now it's time to talk about the best character in the franchise, Rattus. Rattus is the host of Horrible History, voiced by John Eccleston. He normally interjects after a sketch with a joke, and sometimes dresses up to match the era to do his own little sketch. A lot of the times during the sketches, he appears on the screen to confirm a really outlandish thing that's happening on screen is historically accurate and not something just being done for the sake of entertainment. He also has an adorable nephew called Rattus and other family and loved ones. I would say Rattus is the greatest mascot for Horrible Histories, and he fits in every era. As long as there are humans, there will be rats to eat our discarded food, burrow through our trash, and spread disease to us. Rats and humans are in this game for life. As much as I and a lot of kids in the UK might have loved this show, it was not perfect. This show did brownface a lot. The show normally covered European history, but when it went to other continents, instead of hiring different actors, they darkened the skin of the main 6 with makeup. The brownface was typically done for the sketches set in Egypt, for the Incas, and for the Aztecs. Some of the cast have spoken about it, like Matthew Banton, who was one of the most well-known of the cast members. He recently did an interview for the Oxford Union talking about Horrible Histories and discussing his new show Ghost, and he spoke about how various aspects of Horrible Histories did not age well.
It's very kind of you to say it hasn't dated badly. There are elements of Horrible Histories which I look back and go, I don't think we do that now.
After season 5 in 2014, a lot of the original main cast left to do other projects, which is normal for a show that is over a decade old. But every now and then, the original cast get together to do a project. Like in 2015, the film Bill came out, about the little known tales of Shakespeare's life. In that film, a lot of the OG cast were in it. This film was actually written by Lawrence Rickard and Ben Wilbond, two members of the original Horrible Histories, who also appear in the movie as various characters. It was actually the second project they all worked on together. In fact, the original cast made a TV show together called Yonderland, about this woman whose life got turned upside down, when a random elf turns up claiming she is the chosen one, and she's the only one who can save them from this evil guy. Understandably, she is hesitant to abandon her life and family for some random mystical land that she knows nothing about. This show lasted 3 seasons from 2013 to 2016 with 25 episodes and was aired on Sky 1. This is definitely one of their wildest projects. The final thing the original 6 worked on together was the show Ghost, which you might have heard of. It came out in 2019. This show was created by, written by, starred and executively produced by the 6 of them. This show is about a woman called Alison who inherits a mansion from a relative she has never heard of. So her and her husband move in. Alison gets badly injured and briefly dies before coming back to life, and now she can see ghosts. When she gets home to her mansion, there's a gaggle of ghosts living, air quotes around that, in her house. This is the first time they are all playing only one character. Oh wait, they also play Plague Ghost. This show ended in 2023, but this show was so popular that it got made into an American spin-off with slight differences such as switching a Tory MP without trousers to a businessman without trousers, and the plague victims are cholera victims now, or the World War II soldier is now a Continental Army officer. The American version is still going on, and there's also other versions of Ghost being made for French, German, Australian and Greek audiences. So what I want you to get from all the info I just gave to you is these 6 really like working with each other a lot. They'll probably make new stuff where they get around to it.
Now where's my British butler with my British cup of tea?
I also wanted to mention Horrible History did a Brexit special, to which it was called Un-British.
For sugar in your cup of tea, slavery's been supported.
As Horrible History highlighted how a lot of things that are associated with Britain come from wars and slave labour. And some people were really mad about that.
The cotton's from America and picked by
Slaves again.
Considering how successful the show was and how many awards it won, it's not surprising that CBBC waited to milk it for all it was worth. Of course, it got a spin-off series, a film, and the show also continued after a lot of the cast left with a new cast. Whilst Horrible Histories was at its peak, it made 2 spin-offs. The first one I'm going to talk about is
Then let's test your brains with Horrible Histories Gory Games.
Horrible Histories Gory Games. This show started in 2011 on the CBBC after spending 2 years filling kids' brains with gruesome facts. The same people who made Horrible Histories decided to make a game show testing kids on those facts. The host of the show was Dave Lamb and the iconic Rattus Rattus. Each episode had 3 kids competing against each other to win year spheres. Each year sphere contains historical dates that the AD dates get added to the total score and the BC date gets subtracted from the total score, meaning if you won all the rounds but only got BC dates, you would lose to whoever had the highest score and they would win the prize. The way they would decide who gets the spheres was to give the kids either an educational or a physical challenge, and whoever won got their choice of a sphere. The challenges were from the historical eras based on the original book series, Awful Egyptians, Measly Middle Ages, Rotten Romans, Terrible Tudors, Vile Victorians, Awesome USA, Incredible Incas, Groovy Greeks, Stone Age, Slimy Stuarts, Nasty Knights, Vicious Vikings, Frightful First World War, Gorgeous Georgians, and Putrid Pirates. For the physical games, they would travel through the time sewers, which would sometimes be a single or multiplayer game depending on what the coin chose. The games would be stuff like Savage Siege, which was when the contestants were filling rocks, beehives, and the severed heads of their enemies into a fortress. My personal favourite were Yuckaroo, which was the game Buckaroo merged with grave robbing, and also Mummify Me, which is where the contestants would have to remove the organs from a mummy apart from the heart, and they would have to remove the brains through the nose like actual mummies. The prize of each episode was something Rattus found in the rubbish or the time sewer, I'm not sure. The prizes were things like a chopped off finger with a ring on it, cut from Blackbeard, a mummified cat, a brain ball, or whatever else Rattus found. The questions were often asked by the original cast members dressed as whatever category the question was asked from. They also made a TV app to go along with the show so you could play along at home. The show lasted 5 seasons with 66 episodes from 2011 to 2018. The second spin-off they made was called Horrible Histories with Stephen Fry. If you're from the UK, then you most likely know who Stephen Fry is. Histories. I know him as the host from QI for over a decade. He was also in several episodes of Bones, which is another show I love, and in Doctor Who, because most British actors have been on that show at some point. If you are not from the UK, you might recognise his voice from Apple and Onion as Onion's dad, or more recently as the headmaster in the show Heartstopper. I had never heard of the show until researching for this video, but when I discovered how short it was, it made sense. The show came out the same year as Gory Games, but it was aimed at an adult audience and only has 6 episodes. I could not find any of the actual episodes, but I could find reviews for the show. As far as I could tell, they just got regular skits from Horrible Histories and had Stephen Fry introduce them instead of Rattus Rattus. A number of people said it was not challenging enough for the British adult, which I do not agree with. I have seen people try to convince others that the UK left the continent of Europe, but we did not. We left the European Union. If people are confused by the present, then the past must be just as baffling. Stephen Fry also hosted a sports relief version of Horrible Histories in 2012, which merged past and present, like getting the current British boxer at the time, Amir Khan, to box an ancient Greek boxer and the sailor.
I'm gonna do a little dance on your guts. I'm gonna go skipping with your Cold in here.
There was also another sketch with footballer Jermaine Defoe meeting a football team from the Tudor era, where we are taught how different historical eras played the sport.
Sorry, there's still some blood on that. From the last team we beat. And when I say beat, I mean beat.
In 2015, we enter a new era of Horrible Histories. A lot of the original main cast left, and others filled their place. Series 6 started with an entire episode dedicated to the signing of the Magna Carta, which was following the life of King John, from him joining France in the war against his brother, then running back to his family when that went badly. Then he got to the throne when his brother dies. Then we travel across the world to Mongolia to Genghis Khan, and then so on. As you can tell, season 6 was the start of a change for Horrible Histories format. Prior to this, each episode would bounce around era to era, from Saxon to Stuart to Greeks to Victorians. But from season 6 onwards, episodes will focus on themes of specific types of people. They had numerous other specials following the lives of William the Conqueror, Mary Queen of Scots. They also covered topics such as music throughout history, or the American presidents, or Black British history, the history of Christmas, and the ancient influences. So they kind of went back to the way they did it in the anime series. Some of the original cast appear infrequently, like Jim Howitt in Naughty Napoleon, or Simon Farnaby for his role as Death. This show also had a variety of guest stars really well known in the UK, such as Rowan Atkinson, Joe Brand, Rosie Jones, Danny Dyer, Jill Scott, and many more. I am glad to announce that in 2015 they did realise you cannot just turn people into being other races. It took them a while to get to that. It also had 3 specials that I wanted to mention. One about Shakespeare to honour the anniversary of his death, another dedicated to the Love and Read campaign by the BBC, which was dedicated to historical writers like Charles Dickens, Roald Dahl, and that episode also included famous book characters like Sherlock and Frankenstein. The final episode was for the Fire of London that I wanted to mention. And Horrible History is still going on to this day, educating a new generation of kids on the gruesome fact of history. In 2019, they made a film called Horrible Histories, the movie set around the Rotten Romans, which is obviously set in ancient Rome about this girl called Orla, who is a Celt, who kidnaps this Roman soldier and wants to start a rebellion against the Romans. It stars this evil kid from Heartstopper. It also features most well-known British actors in it. The movie was fine, nothing spectacular. I did chuckle a couple of times. I was just surprised that they stretched a Horrible History sketch into an hour-and-a-half movie. Whilst that was all I had to say about the Horrible Histories books, TV show, and film, it's not the end of the Horrible entertainment. The Horrible franchise continues outside of history. There's a Horrible Geography book series, which is a spin-off to Horrible Histories, written by Anita Ganeri and illustrated by Mike Phillips. This series contains over 15 books. Whilst this series is the least popular out of the 3, with only 2 million, it's still an award-winning book in its own right. There's also Horrible Science, created by Scholastic, like Horrible History, but written by a different author named Nick Arnold and illustrated by Tony DeSouls. This book series started in 1996 and is still being published to this day, selling over 4 million copies. The book series is very similar to Horrible Histories, where it shows the gruesome and gross to get kids interested in the vast world of science. Inside the books there are numerous activities such as jigsaw and stickers, puzzles with a lot of quizzes for information that they learn in the book. This book series has also won and been nominated for a lot of awards. This also has a magazine version, just like Horrible Histories, which I did not mention earlier. With the popularity of the Horrible Histories live action series, it's not shocking that they would make a show for another one of their book series. In the year 2015, when the new cast of Horrible History started, so did a Horrible Science show start. The show follows the host Mark and his producer Lucy trying to make an episode of a science show with the help of Bob the Robot and Professor Taggart. Every episode features a famous scientist who's meant to appear on the show and be interviewed by Mark, but somehow that task is always easier said than done. fun. Unlike Horrible Histories, which was made by CBBC, this show was made by CITV. So maybe that's why this show is not funny at all. Horrible Histories will still make me chuckle. This show was boring. No wonder I had never heard of it before, and it only had one season with 10 episodes. Horrible Histories notably used writers that previously had careers in adult comedy, which comes across in the show. At no point during the original Horrible Histories do they feel like the show is talking down to its audience, even if it's aimed at kids. They don't speak to you like you're stupid. Horrible Science clearly didn't hit the mark. After the failure of the first attempt on Horrible Science, they have decided to try again a decade later in 2025. This one made by Lion Television, the same people who made Horrible Histories TV show, and is way more like the Horrible Histories from 2009. This show will be filled with scientific sketches, both from past and modern discoveries, and of course it will include songs which were instrumental to Horrible Histories' success. Horrible Science also has songs, but they were not as good. For example, they did a parody of Let It Go called Don't Let It Go. Elsa almost died several times in the Frozen movies, and this is still the worst thing that has ever happened to her. So at least the Horrible Science that is set to come out cannot be worse than the first one. I might make a video about it after the season finishes. And that is the history of Horrible Histories. Tell me some of your favourite memories from Horrible Histories. Goodbye.
British things, there are none we declare.